Hello, hello. So, welcome to November's vocal workshop. I'm going to need you guys to check the schedule each week or each month. Check the website. Times may fluctuate depending on if I have lessons or not. So I did fill in my I think it was 5 p.m. last time or 5:30. I filled in that time slot. So I go off of that. But we are here, and I'm about to also go live on Instagram real quick and let them know where to catch me. And then we can get into today's lesson, which is about vocal tips. Vocal tips, we're going to do warm up and whatnot and talk about practicing. And of course, if you guys have any questions, leave a comment and I'll get to that. Let's see. I just got done teaching Killing Me Softly. Absolutely love that song. It's such a good song. Alrighty, got my notes. So I'll wait another minute or so. Well, one more minute. Do 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 do. Song is stuck in my head. It's like back to back to back stuff. And I just ended up buying a new ring light. I'll put the link to it in the description later. But it's kind of cool. I like it. I like it a lot. So let's get into it. So I'm Skylar Reed, if you don't know. And what's up, y'all? On IG, I am live on YouTube. So if you want to join my vocal workshop, join me, YouTube. I am Skylar Reed. And put in your questions, all that good stuff. So we have a few more I want to do with you guys. We're going to do a breathing exercise just to tap in. And if you don't know how to practice, this will help you. There's these tips that I'm going to give you, just some basic tips on how to practice, how to have successful practices when you're trying to work on music and learn songs and whatnot. So we're going to breathe in for 8 counts. We're going to hold our breath, and then we're going to do a snake pulse, which is one of the basic warm-ups that I do to engage and tap into the diaphragm. So let's breathe in for 8. 1, 2, breathe in for 8 and breathe. And you're going to hold your breath. And then you're going to do a snake pulse, which is so you should literally feel like your abs working, and just do that until you run out of breath. Okay, so there's that. So diaphragm, you definitely just want to understand what that is and understand how to tap into it. And that exercise that I do, I build on it, but it's a great exercise to just engage with the diaphragm and make sure that you are constantly singing from the right place, basically. I want to do a quick little 3-note scale warm up with you guys. You can do it on a lip trill or a hum. Lip trills are harder and require more breath support. So I'm going to do mine on a lip trill. But if the lip trill isn't working out for you, do a hum. And if you're on IG, I am on YouTube Live. I'm going to get off here in a sec, but I want you to join me over at YouTube Live on my I Am Skylar Reed page and ask your questions and all that. And we're just doing a vocal workshop. So lip trill. So we're going to go like that. 1, 2, ready, and Cool. So I went kind of fast for that one. Hopefully y'all caught that. Let's see what else I got for warm-ups that I want to do. We're going to do arpeggios on La, then we're going to get into the practice tips, okay? So arpeggios on La, arpeggios thirds. We're going to go 1, 3, 5, 3, 1 like that. Then we're going to sing it on La, and I'll start a little bit lower. 1, 2, ready on La, La, and I'll slow the tempo down a little bit. La, la, keep going. If you're on Instagram, join me over at YouTube. I'm getting off Instagram soon, but I'm doing my monthly vocal workshop. La, la, couple more. One more. Cool. So let's get into these tips on how to practice. If you're on IG, meet me over on YouTube. Peace. All right, y'all. So we're going to cool. We're going to talk about how to practice, when to practice, what to do when you practice, all that good stuff, to make sure that we are actually being effective with our practicing, because sometimes you could just like go through the motions or just like rehearse, but not actually be practicing anything and working towards something. So I want to make sure that you guys are actually doing those things. All right, so the first thing, practice daily. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are practicing every day. It just helps. It just helps you like get into a routine of things, which is actually pretty important. You want to make sure that you are constantly working that muscle. Just like if you were doing a sport or something, you want to make sure that you are working out your muscles every day, practicing that jump shot. If you do basketball, I don't know the terms, but you know, if you're doing a certain sport, you want to be practicing every day to make sure that you're remembering how to do it the next day, and you're just strengthening that muscle and that muscle memory and all of that. So there's that, practicing daily, and basically at the very least warm up your voice. So I understand that not everyone always has time to practice. I work with a lot of vocal students, and I'm a singer myself, and there are times I don't have the time to practice a full out practice how I would normally do it, but I do make time to do warm-ups, and it is a little easy for me because I vocal coach, so I kind of can warm up with my students. But say there's a day I'm not teaching, I can vocal coach and myself and practice and do my warm-ups and whatnot. So it just takes a couple minutes a day, 5 minutes to just do a warm-up, 10 if you really want to warm up. If you don't use it, you'll lose it, basically. So I just, from personal experience, like I find that I literally don't sing well if I don't practice. So if there's times, like seasons in life, where I'm just busy and I don't really have the time to do music, or I'm not in that space at the moment, and then I try to go back to it, or try to go back to performing and doing like a big show or whatever, I'm out of shape. It's not easy getting back into it. So if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, basically. You're just constantly going to be ready and able to just accomplish what you're trying to accomplish easier if you're already like in the mix of going through the motions of doing everything you need to do. So making specific goals is very, very important if you want to have successful practices. So that is being strategic, one. Being strategic is basically not just like, okay, I'm going to like think about what I'm going to work on like the second I start practicing. That's not really strategic. I think being strategic is like actually planning it out, actually putting some thought, maybe the night before, or a couple hours before, like, okay, like, or even like a week ahead, like, okay, this is what I'm working on this week. I'm trying to get stronger in my mixed voice, so I'm going to watch YouTube tutorials on mixed voice. I'm going to pick a song list to help me in my mixed voice, being strategic about it and then going through each practice, like, okay, like this is my big plan. Now I am picking this part of my plan to focus on today, because you can't get it all done. I might when I was focusing on mixed voice, I literally had to just spend a couple months, almost a year, doing just mixed voice songs and focusing in on that and strengthening that. And I came up with a list and I was strategic and I was like, okay. Or even it could be, you might have a big gig coming up and you need to learn 100 songs, not 100, but you might have to learn like 40 if you're in a corporate band. Learn 40 songs by the end of the month. Okay. You don't want to wait till the end of the month to try to learn them all. You're going to be strategic about it. You're going to make very specific goals. Like, okay, week 1, the first week of this month, I am going to learn the first 3 songs. The next week, I'm going to learn 6 songs, and then so forth. So you're kind of like really being mindful of like learning and not just throwing stuff at you, because that can be stressful if you're just like throwing randomness at you and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to do this, or I'm going to do that. It's not very strategic and it's not really thought out. Like I find like I'm when I practice, I'm usually pretty strategic, but there might be times where I just like want to sing through old songs within my practice. And if I'm not strategic, I might just go through it and might just not really think about like, okay, like how can I do this better? And that's the whole point of practicing. It's about figuring out what you can do to make you sound better, to make you sing better, to have better vocal production, to prepare for an opportunity or prepare for the opportunity to have opportunity. Like you just want to be ready. So just being specific with your goal setting can be really, really helpful and being strategic about it, planning it out, mapping it out. Be reasonable. Okay. So the second thing for this, you want to be reasonable. If I am going to learn 40 songs for a corporate band, I am not going to be like, okay, the first week I'm going to conquer 20 of them. I'm going to master 20 songs in a week. That's just not realistic unless you don't have anything else to do. Even still, like mastering a song takes time. So just be reasonable with like the time you allot yourself to do something, to actually get something accomplished. And just be mindful of like what you're capable of, like making a goal to learn a Prince song when you have the voice of like, I don't know, who's a low singer, like Sam Cooke or somebody, or like Barry White, or I don't know, somebody that sings really low or something. If you're it's just not realistic if you're a bass or a baritone to necessarily master a Prince song like Kiss, because he's singing mad high, unless you can master that falsetto. And that might be a step towards that. Like, it's like, okay, that will be a realistic goal. Like, I'm going to learn how to do falsetto first before I even like try to touch a Prince song. I'm going to like do these things first before I get to that, because there's steps to it. You want to make sure that you really understand your voice and understand like what you're capable of doing, and not push yourself too, because you can wear yourself out in practice, and you don't want to overwork your voice and like stress your voice and damage your voice eventually. Give yourself a time limit. So for practice or deadline, learn a song or set list. So basically giving yourself a time limit when you practice. For me, it really is based off of my schedule. Like everyone has a life, has a schedule, they work. You might be able to fit in a 30-minute practice session there. You might have a lot of time. Maybe you're able to fit in an hour or two. If you guys are coming in, if you have any questions, vocal questions about anything, put them in the chat and I will get to them. All right. So we're just talking about practice tips and whatnot. So back to what I was just talking about, which was time limit. So creating a time limit for yourself for practice. For me, it really just depends on what my schedule I'm able to do, like everyone else. You have a life. So make sure that you fit it in and you prioritize it. Like if I have a 30-minute, I have some students that they actually take their lunch hour to do voice lesson. I'm like, you are dedicated. I would be eating right now, but I still find time elsewhere. But the idea is just like creating that time for it. Okay. Sebastian, thank you for your question. Hey, how do I strengthen my voice? So I'll put this up. So strengthening your voice practicing it. So what we're talking about right now, practicing it. The first tip I gave out, practicing daily. Like you have to use it. It's just like if you're doing any sport. I used to run track. If I'm running track and like I have a match at the end of the week and I just don't run for the whole week, I want to suck at that match. I'm going to like probably lose and just feel embarrassed. Like it's going to be bad. So just like practice your voice because it's a muscle. And the more you do it, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. So like that's like the first thing. And then also find out your weaknesses because basically you want to strengthen what you're weak at. So if you're weak at singing low, focus on doing some low warm-ups. If you're weak at singing falsetto or singing belting or doing some cool thing that you want to do, study those singers that do those things and like look at YouTube, find some vocal tutorials. I post videos all the time on YouTube about how to do riffs and runs or how to harmonize or how to do different things. There's a lot of things that you can do. But yeah, thank you. That's a great question. If anyone else has a question, just put it up in the comment and I will get to it. So back to that practicing, right? So basically, practicing and making that time to practice, just being specific with your goals and having a limit too, because just with anything, like if you're doing track, you're not just going to run endlessly until like your legs fall off. Like you're gonna stop at some point. You're gonna be strategic. You're gonna warm up. You're gonna stretch. You're gonna do, your workouts and whatever you do. And then you're at the end, you might do a cool down. And it's like a thought out process. It's not like you're just going with it and you aren't being mindful about what you're doing. So just give yourself a time limit and the point with voice is that you don't want to overwork your voice. Just the same way you can pull a muscle in sport, you can pull a muscle, not pull a muscle in your voice, but you can strain your voice and your voice cannot feel good, if you're constantly talking and constantly singing. I used to have a doctor as a vocal coach, a doctor as a vocal student, and she would not have a voice, like because she was constantly talking so loud and talking over so much stuff at the hospital, and it's like that wears and tears out on your voice. So the same thing with practicing. You want to set a limit so you're not overworking yourself vocally, especially like if you have a show the same day and you're doing like a sound check. If you're just doing like one song for a sound check, cool, you might want to go all out if you are doing the proper technique and stuff. But you're not going to want to do the whole show the day of and rehearse. People don't rehearse the day of their show because you're wearing yourself out. You want to save it. You got to save all that energy and all that voice for showtime when it's time to do it. So creating a deadline to learn a song or a set list. So in addition to like the time limit thing, I mentioned like if you have like a 40 song set list to learn for a band, creating a time limit, like, okay, the first week I'm going to learn this, or maybe I'm going to learn all these songs. I'm going to, divvy them up between the weeks, but by the last week, I'm going to have them all learned, creating a deadline. So you like have room to like live with it and feel comfortable with it, get comfortable with the material and all of that. So just be mindful of that. It's like school, but it's like you have to do it by yourself. It's like nobody's telling you how to do it. It's not like you are creating your own. It's not like the syllabus is created for you. You literally have to like create your own syllabus and like be strategic in your own way. So creating a practice log could be another way to be successful in practicing. So if you had lessons growing up, you may recall having a detailed notes from your teacher or some sort of practice log. When I had lessons, I started lessons at like 12 years old. And I had a composition book, and I probably still have it somewhere. But side note, I had a composition book where my vocal coach, she would write notes in, and I would like, write stuff in too. But she would write, stuff that we did in our lesson, things that I need to work on, And from teaching myself through different studios and whatnot, I've seen where a lot of studios, music studios, they use some sort of notebook, a pad, something to notify parents of their child's like progress in their lesson or write notes of what the student is doing. If you've had lessons with me, you know that I am a very detailed note taker. I've always been like in school. I just always took really detailed notes. But basically I use an app and every student has their own notebook and everybody can well, that student can see their notebook and see their progress. Each note is dated, and you have full blown out, like thorough notes of the lesson that we had. Um, from the warm-ups that we did to the song that we worked on, to what I thought we needed to work on, to what was difficult to you, and just the things that we touched on. So I know when I'm going to the next lesson, the next voice lesson that we have, I know exactly where to pick up. I know exactly what to review. I know what we're working on, and that is something that I take away for myself. As like I learned that young, I do that with my students, but I also do it by myself. Like I take notes of like, okay, in my calendar, I might be like, okay, today I'm working on this and that. And then I'll make a little note like, that needs some work or whatever. Just because you might not remember, if you have a lot of material, you might not remember all the little things that need work with certain songs. So creating a practice log for yourself might be really helpful. Or just a note, like when I have lessons with my vocal coach, I literally I use my phone, my notes app in my phone, and I take notes doing my own lesson. Like I'm like, okay, I'm she's talking and I'm like sitting there typing out notes. Like, okay, this is what okay, all right, cool. And I take that so I know like, okay, when I go back to practice this song, I have those notes to refer back to and to, check and see my own progress and whatnot and help me because it's all supposed to be helpful. Um it helps to document your journey so you can see your progress. Um, and basically, like each student that I teach, they start off with their range and whatnot, and like things that they want to work on. And as we go through, I touch on these things and we grow, and their range might expand and things like that. And it's kind of cool to be able to see that for them to like look back and be like, oh, wow, like I can't believe I learned, or we might go back and do an old song. And it's like so easy, so easy. But then it was hard. It was hard when they first learned it. But months later, a year later, years later, you attempt that song, it's so easy because you've grown so much, you've learned so much, you've practiced so much. So there's that, just that practice log. With an instrumental. So practice with an instrumental. Then the last thing I want to talk about with practicing tips, please practice with instrumental because it's so helpful. Stray away from practicing a cappella unless it's intentional. Because when you practice a cappella, you go at your own pace. You're like, you can go slow, you can go fast, you can be doing multiple tempos all by yourself. But when you do with the instrumental, it keeps you on beat. And when you're performing, you're going to be doing it with music, whether it's a band or whether it's with the instrumental itself. So you want to make sure that you're used to keeping it like consistent. Because if you're doing it by yourself, it's kind of hard to actually tackle breath support because you could just slow down if you feel like it. Oh, I just need to slow down. I've had so many times where it's like, oh my gosh, I did do with the instrumental. Oh my goodness, I can't keep up. I'm like, well, you've been practicing a cappella. You need to practice with the instrumental so you can get used to the actual tempo of the song and get used to like actually how fast you're supposed to be singing these words or even how slow the song is. And you might be speeding it up or doing it at a regular tempo where it's like, no, you're supposed to be slowing up this phrase and actually working that breath way longer. You might need to learn how to pace your breath and get through the phrases better. So just practicing with the instrumental and finding instrumental closest to the track as possible. YouTube has tons of instrumentals. Some of them are cheesy and corny and just not the best, and some of them are very accurate to the track. So I would say, sift through and find the best instrumentals you can that actually resemble what the track is doing. Stay on beat, build endurance. So with practicing with instrumental, it does help you build endurance. If I'm practicing a cappella, once again, I could just be going at my own pace and doing my own thing. When you're practicing, like with the show mix, if I have a gig, I like to make show mixes of like all the songs that I'm doing the whole set. And doing it that way, it's like, okay, like I'm practicing like my endurance, making sure like it's like playing a game of basketball or football or whatever. And you have to get through the whole game. You can't just like, all right, the first quarter's done, I can take a break. No, you have to like practice that whole thing. So even if you have like a set, if you're doing that kind of thing, if you're performing live at shows, if you're in a band doing bar gigs, clubs, whatever, practicing that whole set together is helpful because you want to make sure that you can get through the whole set and have breath support because the more you go, the harder it's going to get to breathe and support and to have that energy. So yeah, practice with the instrumental. um it is almost time, so I will get ready to go, but I do want to tell y'all that I have a course called the Vocalist Plan. And in the Vocalist Plan, I focus on helping singers become the best singers they can be by strategic planning, by giving you guys the tools to be successful. So there's daily warm-ups the whole month of the vocal workshop. There's access to the online vocal course, the online vocal workshop that I do each month on Skype. There's access to videos talking about more in depth of what I just discussed, but just so much stuff on just how to be successful, because I think there's so many talented people out there, there's so many, but it really comes down to the work ethic, honestly. With anything, with any job, any field, you can be the most talented person, but really, like, just look at Beyonce. Okay, like, she's talented, but she also has amazing work ethic. And that work ethic is probably why she's where she is and why she accomplished what she accomplished, because of that work ethic. She really put in the time, the work. She was strategic about what she did. And I just think that if artists, up and coming artists, think about that more, think about thinking of themselves as a business rather than just like a singer, like, "Oh, I just like to sing." Like, if you're really trying to be an artist, think of yourself as a business, like, schedule out time, take the time, focus on, your goals, create the goals, So I do touch on all of those things and how to actually accurately, set realistic goals. I talk about different kind of goals and all those things and a whole bunch of other things I can't quite remember right now because I have 2 courses and it's been a long day. But you can find out more information on my site, skylarsmusicstudio.com, if you're interested in that course. It's been pretty helpful to a few people so far. So, yeah, and I appreciate everyone that did come on and ask questions, and just join me next month. It will be every second Tuesday. So next month is December, and I think should be straight. So 7 p.m. next month. I'll see y'all on here. Bring your questions. And if you have questions already and you just want me to like have them prepared, certain things that, like, last time someone asked about harmonizing, couldn't answer it here because I needed, like, there was a song that she wanted me to do. But if there's something specific, just send me a email. I am Skylar Reed, or no, at Skylar's Music Studio at gmail.com. So email or just DM me on my social. I am Skylar Reed or at Skylar's Music Studio. Yeah. So peace, y'all. Y'all have an amazing rest of your evening. Thanks for tuning in.